Okay, so we're all living through this massive AI boom. Trillions, and I mean trillions, of dollars are being bet on its future. But what if all that momentum is just a mirage? Today, we are digging into a report that asks a pretty tough question. Is this AI gold rush for real, or is it just a massive speculative bubble that's waiting to pop?
And this really is the trillion-dollar question, isn't it? Is this global, all-in bet on artificial intelligence actually based on solid ground? Or is it an illusion that's being fueled by pure hype? The stakes are unbelievably high, so let's start breaking down the evidence piece by piece.
All right, so for Exhibit A, we're not starting with technology. We're not starting with code or silicon chips. We're starting inside the human mind. The report argues that the real engine driving all this hype, well, it's our own psychology.
And the main culprit here is a fascinating cognitive bias called the Dunning-Kruger effect. It's completely counterintuitive, but it boils down to this. The people with the least amount of knowledge on a topic are often the most confident they're experts. It's like their lack of skill makes them blind to how much they don't know.
Now this is where it gets really interesting. This shows the typical journey to becoming a real expert. The report's claim is that a lot of the loudest voices in the AI space are stuck right there at stage 1, unconscious incompetence. This first peak of wild overconfidence is so well known that researchers have a nickname for it, Mount Stupid. It's that dangerous place where you don't know what you don't know and you feel invincible.
And this slide just lays out the whole dynamic perfectly. On one side, you've got the novices who are climbing Mount Stupid, fueled by the Dunning-Kruger effect, making these huge sweeping claims. And on the other side, you have the actual experts, the ones who truly understand the complexity and all the limitations, and they're often questioning themselves, suffering from imposter syndrome. So what you get is a marketplace of ideas where the most confident voices are very often the least informed.
Okay, so that's the human psychology part. But next, we're going to see how that gets amplified by the system itself. This exhibit focuses on 2 hidden flaws that are creating a really dangerous feedback loop and hiding the true costs of what's going on with AI.
This brings us to something called Goodhart's Law. The idea is actually pretty simple. The second you start rewarding people for hitting a specific number, they will find a way to make that number go up, even if it means completely wrecking the original goal. And according to this report, the AI industry is just a textbook example of this in action.
So how exactly is this system being gamed? Well, instead of focusing on real, meaningful progress, the industry starts chasing these superficial metrics. They brag about having bigger parameter counts, which is basically just the size of the model, even if it doesn't make it any smarter. You get models that are trained to ace academic tests, but then fall flat on their face in the real world. And of course, startup valuations are driven by hype and headlines, not actual profitable business models. The metrics themselves are the goal.
The second big systemic flaw is the Jevons paradox. Now, this is another one of those totally counterintuitive ideas, this time from economics. It says that when technology makes it more efficient to use a resource, we don't end up saving that resource. No, because it's now cheaper and easier to use, we end up consuming way more of it.
And you can see the paradox laid out so clearly right here. As our AI chips and our algorithms get way more efficient, the total demand for computation, for energy, for water to cool data centers, it is absolutely exploding. Sure, each individual search might be cheaper, but that just makes it easier for us to do trillions more of them.
And here's where it all comes together in this really nasty feedback loop. Goodhart's Law pushes everyone to build more efficient AI based on those gamed metrics. That so-called efficiency then triggers the Jevons paradox, which causes a massive, unsustainable spike in resource use. And then, and this is the crazy part, that huge consumption is then shown to investors as proof of success and growth, which starts the whole cycle over again.
Okay, for our final exhibit, let's do what they always say, follow the money. Because when you actually look at the financials, the report argues you can see all the fingerprints of a classic, speculative bubble that is just about ready to burst.
Let's just start with the sheer scale of this thing. By the year 2030, AI companies will need to be generating $2 trillion in revenue every single year, not to make a profit, just to cover the cost of their computers. Let that sink in. That is the insane size of the bet that's being made.
But here is the massive disconnect. A huge study from MIT found that even with all that spending, 95% of organizations are seeing zero financial return on their AI investments. All this money is pouring in, but the actual value, the ROI, just isn't there.
So how does this compare to bubbles of the past? Well, this table puts the current boom right next to the dot-com bubble, and honestly, the parallels are pretty scary. You've got extreme concentration of power in just a few companies, a totally unclear path to ever actually making money, and a revolutionary technology that everyone is terrified of missing out on. Sound familiar?
So after looking at all this evidence, what's the verdict? According to this analysis, a market correction isn't just a possibility. It's pretty much inevitable. It's going to be a systemic purge of all the hype and the excess in the industry.
And the report points to several things that could pop the bubble. Progress could just stall out. The promised revenue might just never show up. We could literally run into resource bottlenecks, not enough GPUs, not enough electricity to power them. Or some catastrophic AI failure could happen that leads to a massive regulatory crackdown. The point is, the system is a lot more fragile than it looks.
And this crash won't just be about money. The report calls it a disillusionment crash, because the real asset being destroyed here isn't just stock prices. It's the entire story we've been told, that AI progress is easy, that it's inevitable, that it's guaranteed. This is going to be a very painful collision with reality.
But what about the fallout from that collision? I mean, this is the most important question, right? Who actually pays the price when this bubble finally bursts? Because the report makes it very clear that the costs are not going to be shared equally.
And the human cost is already here. We're feeling it now. Even before any kind of crash, AI has been cited as a reason in nearly 78,000 job losses in the past year alone. This is not some future problem. It's happening as we speak. So who's most at risk? Well, it's people and jobs that involve routine knowledge work. We're talking about entry-level office jobs, administrative assistants, writers, even junior coders. Think about it. Recent graduates are walking into a job market where the very first rung of the career ladder is being automated away from under them.
But the human cost is so much bigger than just jobs. When the market crashes, it's everyday retail investors and people in retirement who are going to lose their savings. Algorithmic bias, we know, disproportionately hurts marginalized communities. And the risks for misinformation and fully autonomous systems, well, those affect every single one of us.
So let's wrap all of this up with one final and I think crucial thought that looks beyond the crash itself. Look, the bubble will probably pop. Hype cycles always end. But the technology itself, the actual AI, that's real, and it is not going away. So the most important question for our future is this. After the crash clears out all the hype and the speculators, who gets to decide how this incredibly powerful technology is rebuilt, and for whose benefit? That's the question we're all going to be left with.